There is a very specific memory from people born in the 1990s and 2000s that we all share collectively. You're sitting in your bedroom, maybe it's late at night, maybe it's after school, and maybe your parents are sat downstairs. You open your laptop or your family computer and you type in one word: Omegle. You don't really know why you're there. You just know that everyone is talking about it. And within seconds, you are face to face with a stranger. No names, no profiles, no age verification, no idea who they are or who you are talking to. Just a blinking cursor and a webcam, and would quietly define an era of the internet. Talk to strangers. For some people, Omegle was a joke. For some, it was boredom relief. For others, it was a place to make friends, to flirt and to chat. But for many, and especially children, this place was a lot darker. And today I want to talk about how a website that felt chaotic, silly, and ultimately like a bit of fun became one of the most dangerous, unmoderated places on the internet that we have ever produced. This is not a nostalgia video. This is not a moral panic video. This is a reflection on what happens when technology moves faster than responsibility. Just a quick trigger warning for this video. This video is talking about some very heavy topics, including offences related to children and sexual behaviours and sexual offences. Please click off this video if this one is not for you, and we will see you in the next one. To understand why Omegle has become so dangerous, we need to understand what it really was, structurally, philosophically, and culturally. So Omegle launched in 2009 and it was built by an 18-year-old. The idea was so simple to the point of probably naivety. Connect two strangers online in a one-on-one chat room. No accounts, no usernames, no history. You could choose to do text chat, you could do video chat, or later there was an interests part where you could connect with people based on a vague tag, and that was it. There was no meaningful moderation, no real age gating or identity verification, and no safeguarding concern apart from a report button that relied on the harm already occurring. Omegle wasn't really built like a social network. It was built like a dark digital room. And there's a thing that people really forget about. Omegle didn't just allow people to be anonymous, it enforced it. You weren't meant to know who you were talking to, and they weren't meant to know you, and that was a design choice. Whether it was intentional or not, it really shaped everything that was about to follow. Omegle exploded in popularity in the 2010s, especially amongst teenagers. And why do you think that is? It offered something that social media didn't actually offer at the time, and that was no follower counts, no pressure, no permanence, and no social consequences. If something got weird, you would click next and you would go on to the next chat room. To a 13 or 14-year-old, that probably feels quite safe, but it wasn't. Omegle became a rite of passage. It became a sleepover activity, something you would dare your friends to do, something your older siblings would probably show you, and something that YouTubers normalised. And crucially, at the centre of that, parents really didn't understand what their teenagers were doing. It didn't look like Facebook, it didn't look like Instagram, it didn't look like a game, it was just a chat window, which meant kids were walking into one of the most unregulated spaces online with no protection whatsoever. Let's be honest about what Omegle really became. If you spent any real time on it, you probably were exposed to things that you shouldn't have been. Sexual content, harassment, racism, threats, exposure, and often adults deliberately seeking minors. This wasn't a glitch. I think this was a very predictable outcome, because when you create a space where you can be anonymous with no identity and no age regulations, you are instantly disconnected. You are creating the perfect hunting ground. This isn't just some sort of speculation. That is a documented reality. This did happen on the platform. To understand the implications of a platform like Omegle and why Shutdown wasn't necessarily a surprise, we need to look at the real legal consequences that came from this platform. Up until now, some of the things that we discussed are somewhat abstract. It's talking about YouTube, the design, culture, the risks, but the legal consequences are factually there. These are cases where the darkest corners of the internet were laid out flat in a courtroom. home. These aren't statistics or anonymous headlines. These are real people and real crimes with very real victims and consequences. Each one really tells us something important about when being anonymous online can intersect with real human harm. And this is one of the most disturbing documented cases of abuse on Omegle. A young couple in Essex, going by the names Nick and Summer, used the chat platform to commit crimes against children. The crimes came to light after multiple strings of intelligence suggesting that the couple were participating in sexual activity online in the presence of minors. The investigation uncovered that the police online investigation team that had started in December of 2021 revealed the couple had been filming themselves having sex in exchange for watching live footage of a 4-year-old being abused. A crime that simply goes a lot further than just simple online contact. That detail alone is shocking and sickening. But what's crucial to understand is how this directly connected to Omegle's format, because on Omegle people are connected randomly to strangers in unmoderated video chats. As we said, there are no identity checks or safeguarding concerns and no reliable age verification. The lack of filtering made it really easy for the couple to expose younger children and to switch between the chats with very minimal friction. At Chelmsford Crown Court, Nick, who pleaded guilty to engaging in sexual activity in the presence of a child and arranging or facilitating a child sex offence, was sentenced to 12 years in prison with a minimum of 7 years before parole eligibility. Summer did initially plead not guilty, was found guilty after trial, and received 3 years of imprisonment for arranging the commission of child sex offences. Both were also subjected to indefinite monitoring requirements and placed on a sex offender list, meaning that every future interaction with a child is legally scrutinised. So why this matters, this wasn't just an isolated chat. This was a pattern of occurrences using Omegle's unregulated areas to facilitate harmful and exploitative acts, and then live streaming or trading footage of that harm. It is such a clear example of how anonymous chat rooms could be weaponised by those with an intent on harming children. The next case brings something even more deeply unsettling, where institutional trust was abused after an initial contact on Omegle. A former Metropolitan Police volunteer special constable, identified in the court by the name Gwyn, was convicted on numerous sexual offences, including rape and abuse of a child, after grooming them on online applications such as Omegle. Here are the key details that came out during the court proceedings. The defendant originally met one of the victims on Omegle. At the time of meeting, the girl in fact was underage. She had told him she was 16, but she was in fact younger. Their online interactions quickly became sexual, progressing from chat to in-person meetings. The relationship was later described in court as a trauma bond, a dynamic where a young person feels attached or tethered to their abuser over time. Prosecutors told the jury that at the time the victim did not realise they were being groomed. Over many meetings after the initial contact, some in public spaces, the defendant allegedly engaged in violent sexual and exploitative behaviours that had spanned over years. This isn't just Omegle being used as a meeting place, it's about trust and how someone in a place of position that should prioritise safety used an anonymous website to really initiate the exploitation that can then be moved to further abuse offline. Legal proceedings are ongoing, but the victim accounts presented in court highlight how easily unverified online conversations can really spiral into real-world abuse, especially when trust is weaponised. While UK cases show how predators can use online chats to facilitate direct abuse, there are also some documented cases internationally in which Omegle was used to share or broadcast inappropriate materials of children. In the US in late 2024, an investigation was initiated by the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, where they received a cyber tip about suspected child sexual abuse material being live streamed via Omegle. The man involved, a guy called Nathaniel, who is 35 years old, was identified and arrested after police had confirmed that video images and footage that he had distributed included those of minors. During the search of his property, authorities seized 2 phones and a memory card containing hundreds of images and videos, including the content that did trigger the initial investigation. He later pleaded guilty to federal charges of distribution and possession of child abuse materials. Crimes in the US can carry decades in prison and severe fines, followed by long-term supervision after release from prison. This case is really significant because it does show again how Omegle's anonymous reporting system could flag harm, but how slow these international cases can become once they become flagged. It shows that Omegle isn't just used by predators to meet, but to share and distribute abusive materials. In some cases, blitzed around anonymous audiences until they are connected with a vulnerable target. So what do these cases really teach us, and why do they matter? Omegle being anonymous was not a neutral feature. It was a vector. These cases really show how predators capitalized on the lack of identity and age verification, or really meaningful moderation to protect children, so they could target the children and carry out the abuse with minimal issues online. The consequences were real and they are long lasting. In each instance, courts did not treat these as prankish or young mistakes. They were prosecuted as serious sexual offences, and offenders received long sentences and constant monitoring. But sadly, Omegle's shutdown didn't erase the harm. The platform faded from the internet after years of documented abuse cases and a lawsuit settlement connected to sustained exploitation claims. But the patterns that these websites have created have continued to exist on other platforms. The design of a platform is not morally neutral. What might seem like a fun idea, like a chat roulette, becomes something else entirely when there are no meaningful regulations. No age gate, no identity verification, no active moderation, and that's just the legal aftermath. The section where the court really did manage to catch up with some of the offenders. But how many more children were affected that never became a court case? How many more predators were never really identified? And what does it mean for the platforms that really allowed this in the first place? So now we need to talk about YouTube, because Omegle didn't grow organically. It was popularized, normalized and monetized. Throughout the 2010s, prank channels, reaction channels, talking to strangers videos and trolling videos, Omegle became the core of all of it. Creators built entire careers surrounding shocking strangers, embarrassing them, baiting reactions or laughing at what appeared on the screen. Some of the creators did in fact become millionaires based off of this initial interaction, but there's a really uncomfortable truth to all of this. These videos really trained a whole entire young audience that Omegle was entertainment, not risk. They didn't show the online predatory behaviours of some adults, the grooming, the trauma, the victims. They just showed the funny parts, which meant children were going into the app expecting laughs and instead came out with harm and getting exposed to things they really shouldn't have been. Eventually, reality did catch up. A lawsuit was filed alleging that Omegle failed to protect a child from sexual exploitation on its platform, and this time the defense didn't hold. Omegle's creator announced the shutdown of the website in 2023. In his statement, he did admit something crucial, that the platform had been misused in ways to create harm, and after more than a decade online, Omegle was gone. Not redesigned, not reformed, it was shut down. But here is the problem: the demand never went away. In 2025, people are still searching for Omegle alternatives, random video chats, anonymous strangers. The model survived even if the website didn't, which means the risks are still surviving today. Unmoderated spaces still exist, children are still wandering into them, and predators will still follow. This isn't just an Omegle problem, it's an internet design problem, and I want to briefly connect this conversation to other platforms, because Omegle wasn't a game, but today games are social platforms. Roblox, voice chats, private servers. I have made a separate video deep diving into Roblox, and I do strongly recommend you watching it, because the pattern is the same. There are kids making unmoderated conversations with anonymity and trust. Different interface and the same risks. Omegle, I don't think, was evil by intention, but it was reckless by design. It proved something really uncomfortable, that when you strip away accountability and identity and ultimately moderation, the internet doesn't become free, it becomes a very dangerous place. And the people that pay the price are rarely the ones that built it. They're the ones who wandered in, who were curious, who are bored, and who are young. So if you do remember memories of Omegle fondly, that is okay. But I think we also need to really remember the full picture, because although some people are nostalgic over it, it shouldn't really erase the responsibility there, and silence shouldn't erase harm. If you had made it this far, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I do want to say, if you are in a position of talking to someone about the internet, whether it be a young person or a vulnerable person, please talk to those people in your life about the internet, not fearfully but honestly, about some of the real risks and dangers of using these spaces, because the risks don't go. Sadly, I think they're just evolving. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy it, please subscribe down below. I talk about all different things on the internet, and I would love to see you join along on the journey. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.